Hey, all you spicy midlife women out there, Jules and Michele here from Seattle, Washington, the Emerald City. And we are your two spicy midlife women, bringing you all kinds of real life stories and no BS conversations, right, Michelle?
Oh, yes, that is right. We are here to help all you midlife women redefine your relationships, ditch those toxic cycles, and reclaim your power one episode at a time.
So let's get into it. We've got a good
Let's
topic today,
do it.
Michelle, right?
Yeah, we do.
The
Yes.
unspoken truth about midlife desires. Ooh, doesn't that
Yeah.
sound juicy?
It sounds really
Yeah.
juicy.
So if we could say out loud,
We have got a good episode this week, don't we, Jules?
yes, we do.
Yes, we do. And it's the unspoken truth about midlife desires. And that's going to talk about a whole lot of things. But can we just talk about one thing that nobody warned us about?
Yes, please.
Well, I think that midlife doesn't kill us, right? I think we always get this thing in our head where midlife is it's just miserable,
Yeah.
right? And really what it's doing is it's exposing
Yes.
us. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I would say so. Yeah, I think it's definitely
And
exposing us to things that we really have maybe avoided thinking about or
yeah,
have been super busy that day and didn't want to deal with, you know?
that's the thing that nobody warned us about.
Right.
So that's what I mean when I say that. And I think typically when we feel restlessness, it's because we think something's wrong.
Mhm.
Okay, and really, when it comes to midlife, I think it's because it's waking us up.
Yeah.
It's not because something's wrong,
Well, I
and
think
we
we're
have to pay
realizing
attention to that.
we want we we might want more than what
Well,
we have. And we want to be more revitalized. We want to have more depth, to our lives. And so yeah, that and the desires that correspond with that, we've kind of gotten away from, earlier on when we're really catering to a lot of other people perhaps in our lives, our children, whatever, our husband, wife, whatever. So yeah, no, I think it's definitely something that we need to just kind of scream from the rooftops. There are a lot of desires in midlife that we maybe just put on the back burner because we think, oh, it's too late, we're too old, or we've got too many other responsibilities. There's too many people that are relying upon us. And that just really doesn't necessarily have to play into the narrative.
yeah. So that's this episode. This is what we're talking about, right? It's going to be about the desires that we want, but we don't say them out loud.
Right.
Hence the unspoken truth, right? We don't say them out loud. We the ones we minimize,
Yeah.
we push down, we repress, the ones we judge
Yeah.
because we think we shouldn't.
For the
How
ones that we
could
think
we?
are, "Oh my gosh, that's just way too much."
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
gonna send my world into an orbit because it's so different than what I've normally done that people
Mhm.
are gonna scratch their head that love me and go, "What the hell's wrong with you?" You know?
Yeah.
Can you tell that's happened to me? Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna just, focus on that. And I think what's important to note as we have kind of gone through a big portion of our lives at this point is that our desires don't really go away.
Right.
They might change. We might mature more into what our desires are than what they were before. They might have more depth to them because we need more. We might want
Mhm.
more in our lives. So it does fade. I think passion cools in relationships. Stability, in our daily lives replaces excitement. All of these things, gratitude, being happy and grateful for what we have replaces wanting more, desiring more. And
It's kind of different. It shifts.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
shift that's my karma. Like, this is where I'm going to be. This is where I'm at. This is what I've created for myself. And I think what we're trying to get across to everybody is it doesn't really have to be that way. There's no reason to think that you can't desire more out of life just because you have raised your kids or because you're in the process of making a job change or that your life is too complicated because you only get one. And I think that's where we have to really talk about the desires that we have and trying to fulfill as much of that as we possibly can in our lifetime so we lead a good, full body wonderful life. And it's going to look
Yeah.
different for everybody, obviously.
Well, it does look different for everybody. We need to talk about too how if you think about it, it kind of I already used the word shift, so I'm gonna use that word again. The desires, the way that we want and have those, it shifts,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think,
I think
as
that goes
you
with maturity too.
move on, yeah, and you get into midlife because there's more emotional depth now
Mhm.
in midlife, whereas before there was a lot more surface
Yes.
attraction and,
100%.
lust,
Yeah.
if you will, but surface attraction about a lot of things.
Mhm.
And in this stage in life, there's more authentic connection that we have because we recognize the
So less
importance.
connections, but more authentic,
More authentic,
deep
yes.
ones. I would agree.
Because I think a lot of times earlier on in life, you're doing a lot of performative roles in many situations. And now there's more intimacy as opposed to obligation.
Mhm.
And that can be in relationship, that can be with your family, your children, a lot of things. Intimacy just doesn't mean sex. Had many, discussions about that in past episodes. But, and
It
then
could be sex.
I mean, I'm not saying it
Intimacy
doesn't mean
versus
sex.
obligation is like, "Do I
We are
have to have
spicy
sex
midlife
tonight?"
women. I guess I will.
Yeah,
Yeah. That I think more now in midlife, the desire has shifted to freedom,
Mhm.
as opposed to not having the freedom because you're concerned about approval,
Right.
right? And yeah, there's just shift that happens, and I actually kind of love that.
Yeah.
All of that really makes sense to me.
Yeah, I would say in midlife, we need to really discuss how our desires, they're not smaller necessarily at all. They're just maybe a little bit more specific. There's more intention behind it. It's more honest. We've really kind of probably done a lot of soul searching about the things that are really important to us that we want out of our life. And
Hmm.
so making those shifts so we can kind of enjoy things from a different perspective is really what I think is happening in midlife because you don't really think about these things when you're in the midst of the throes of raising a really young family or
Hmm.
big career shifts and things like that. Most people do not have the capacity to do all of it at the same time. Or if they do, they're kind of Wonder Woman, I guess. And I always thought of myself as Wonder Woman, but I was so far from it, it wasn't even funny. I was just trying to keep my head above water. So I understand where that's coming from. But I think more importantly is we're just less willing to fake it or to just go through the motions. That is definitely something that I have found for myself, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think with that comes a lot. You mentioned being more honest about things,
Yeah,
and I think we have to. It's important to be honest about the desires as well that we don't admit to, if that makes sense.
100%. That's where I think we get stuck,
Mm.
you know? It's like, for example, you're in midlife, you're going through different changes with your body. You've had children, so your body has kind of some battle scars and things. And that might directly impact the ability that you have to feel desired, or if the person that's in your life doesn't show you the type of desire that they had 10 years ago, those are the things that are really probably on your list of wonderful things to have happen. So,
Mhm.
as an example, I think in midlife, those things kind of go by the wayside a little bit, or people just assume everything's fine. And so they don't get into it. Whereas I've noticed more now as I've gotten older, it's like it is definitely more of a conversation, definitely more something that we talk about because we've gotten to the point where we're just not going to settle for some of the things, like even talking about sex or talking about what your needs are or what you want to have or want to see. I think that throws people off sometimes because they're not used to that conversation happening. It's just more like people don't really talk about it. And so
Mhm.
when you start
Yeah.
talking about it and I think it maybe turns a head or two, when they're like, your
Yeah.
partner or whatever's like, okay, well, I guess she has an opinion about this. There's more discussion and things that go along with that to make sure that intimacy and things are more pleasurable, that they have more depth to them. Because I mean, sex is sex. We can all have it, it's fun and whatever. But it's like intimacy is a whole different realm. It takes everything to a whole different level, which if you haven't experienced it before, you don't know what you're missing because it's pretty amazing, when that does happen. So,
Yeah. So I think what I was talking about in regard to the desires that we don't admit that we have, Julie just mentioned a couple of them, but the desire to be desired again
Uh-huh.
because of the things we go through with our bodies. I think too, wanting sex that feels good and alive and not so habitual and routine. I think
Yeah.
that can tend to happen,
Yeah.
right? And we don't like admitting to these things just to drive my point there, or wanting more emotional
Right.
intimacy is one as
Which
well.
would mean just like having conversations, emotional intimacy might be just, it might be a touch, it might be a look, it might be having conversations about things that are important to you. It's like with someone who you love and care about, or someone you want to be in a long-term relationship with. So it's like people don't really think about it that way. It's like you kind of start getting into your routine, your daily routine, and a lot of these things just kind of get checked on the shelf. And that's
Yeah.
why we have so many issues and problems with people in relationships and
Hmm.
getting divorces and things like that because we don't really talk about a lot of this stuff. So, wanting adventure, wanting career shifts, those kinds of things are unspoken a lot of the time because you feel guilty. You feel like you're putting yourself first. And that's not necessarily what's happening. It's like,
Yeah.
I remember saying, when kids were little, it's like I needed to do a lot of the things that I did for myself because ultimately I was going to be a better mom because I felt like I had a little more balance. Now, it was constantly a struggle to get that balance. But when I did have it, when I did feel like I was able to invest time in things that were not surrounding my kids and my family, I feel like I was so much more appreciative of what was happening with them. It wasn't becoming so routine.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
obviously far from being a perfect mom, but those were the things that I remember very vividly, that I just kind of didn't acknowledge right away. Oh,
I can think of times when I desired to have less responsibility
yeah.
and right?
Well,
And more time alone, right? I man, totally can
yeah.
remember wanting that.
And how many women are out there right now living in a house with another person, their significant other, their loved one, whatever, and they feel alone. They
Yeah.
feel alone because they want some sort of attention from that person that is supposed to be their person, but maybe they're not getting it or they're feeling guilty about it because their person has got their head wrapped around something else. I mean, there are so many things about our bodies, for example. We would just want to feel vibrant and want to feel like people are noticing and paying attention to the work that we're doing on ourselves, that it just kind of
Yeah.
reaffirms a lot of the things that we're already doing. And yeah, you're absolutely right about the responsibility. It's like so much so sometimes that you literally can't plan it all into a day. And it would
Yeah.
be nice to have alone time.
Yeah.
Just like just to be. I remember
Yeah.
having those days and I'd be like, I have 6 hours. I have 6 hours to do whatever I want. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? Because 6 hours is very long in the big scope of things.
I can remember times when I would pretend to not feel well so I could just go in my room and be
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah, because I'm knocking on the door or when's dinner ready? That sort of
But
thing.
I think I want to say this really clearly, listeners, so that you hear and understand this. Wanting more does not mean that you are ungrateful.
No.
It does not mean that you're ungrateful. We're human,
Yeah.
right? We're just human. And there's nothing wrong with the desires that we have.
Yeah, and when you listen to your desires, I think you communicate a little bit differently about things, maybe with a little bit more thought placed into how
Mhm.
you are conveying what your needs are, what your desires are to the people that are around you so they could support, maybe that direction.
It's information.
Yeah,
We got to talk about these
yeah.
things. Otherwise resentment starts happening.
Well, that's a big one. That's a huge one. When there is not a lot of conversation that takes place, that is a huge one.
Why do you think it is that women tend to silence themselves, Julie? I mean, look, why do you think that is?
Well, I can speak for myself. It's like, it's to keep the peace. It's to not fight. It's to have, but every single time you do that, you're like losing a little piece of yourself. And it's not to say that you want to fight all the time or anything like that. It's just more that's what we have a tendency to do
Yeah.
to make things run smoothly.
I think too, especially our generation, it's almost like we've been socialized to shrink our
Mhm.
desires,
100%. Oh my gosh, that's so true.
to keep peace with the masses. We wanna keep everybody comfortable, we don't wanna, upset the apple cart, whatever those some of those sayings are. That yeah, there's a lot of facets we could go into, and we have in past episodes, so we won't here. Definitely, that is the case, and I think that's a huge reason as to why we tend to silence ourselves
Yeah. I think it just
with what we
and the
want.
more silence that comes forward, I think, to your point earlier, the more resentment we start to feel because we're the ones silencing ourselves.
Yeah,
And we're
back
doing
to
it
that R
ourselves.
word.
Yeah. What did
Mm,
you just say? The R word?
the R word, resentment.
Resentment. Oh, yeah.
Because it will build,
And it
definitely.
destroys relationships. It
Yeah.
destroys them. So if it's not something that's being discussed or you're taking one for the team or you're being a martyr, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're not doing your partner any favors.
Well, and I think sometimes too, when we let that happen, when we silence
Mhm.
ourselves and the resentment builds, then there's some numbness that might tend to creep in. There's the inability. You just like, it just, what is the word I'm trying to say? It debilitates
Yeah.
you. I don't know why that was so hard, but it really can debilitate you. And then it starts showing up and coming to fruition in other ways, right? We might be a little more argumentative
Yes.
than we normally are. We might start thinking more about or fantasizing about, escaping and doing other things, which might not be the best for some of the relationships you're in. But it's because of this whole path that we were just talking about. This is why these things, if you don't verbalize, if you keep these desires unspoken, these are some of the things that can start happening. Anyways, affairs and stuff like that
Yeah.
that
Well, I was
that
just
you
that's
can
what I
think
was
of.
just thinking. It's like when you don't feel like you're getting the acknowledgement or the reaffirmation from your partner, it's like, that's why people start going to look for it somewhere
Slippery
else.
slope.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
missing something. Something is very empty or wrong, and so the validation's coming from somewhere else. So that's how that kind of stuff ends up creeping into
Yeah.
relationships, I would say.
Emotionally, we can start being emotionally withdrawn. Those it's just like not good things,
Yeah.
and just being restless
Yeah.
and doing it in secret.
Yeah.
Ugh,
I know.
ugh,
It doesn't feel good. Doesn't
doesn't
feel good.
feel good.
So anyway, I guess a lot of women are probably thinking, as we're talking about this whole topic, it's like, "Oh, I thought it was just me.
Yeah,
I thought maybe it was just me, like, feeling this way." But I mean, you are in really good company because there's a lot of women who are out there in this time of their life going, "What the hell is next? What needs
mhm,
to happen in order for me to really wake up and, enjoy my life and put myself first and not feel horrible about it?"
yeah.
And so you're in good company, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. We've been there. We're still there. It's an evolution. You're always looking for ways to improve your life and your relationships and everything. And Lord knows we are not experts at a lot of that because we make mistakes along the way too. But I think the important part is just being able to really talk about it or having a group of people that you can actually converse with and talk about it because there's so many of us that are going through a lot of the same things, you know?
Well, I think we were just talking about some of those things that happen if when we ignore
Mhm.
our desires. Let's just really quick because I think it's super important because this is the empowerment piece. What happens when you honor
Yeah.
that and when you acknowledge these desires and you listen to what those are. I think you'll find yourself communicating differently, just the opposite, really, of the cost of ignoring them.
And I think maybe I know this sounds kind of funny, but like kind of sitting up a little taller or like a little bit like with your chin maybe more held high because you are really acknowledging that you are trying to put yourself first. And again, I say that and I know that is something that people just automatically think of as being a selfish thing to say. But it's like we as women don't put ourselves
Yeah.
first a lot of the time. And
Yeah.
when it comes to your happiness or the desires that you have, you're the only one that's going to make those things happen for yourself.
Mhm. Yeah.
You're gonna be better for the people that are in your life if you feel happy and fulfilled, like you're getting what you want out of life too.
And you might have to set a boundary or two.
Yeah.
Right? Communicate differently, maybe than you have. Prioritize
Mhm.
your pleasure and the things that you want, prioritizing and putting them higher up on that
Yeah.
list. Okay. And just being more honest and open.
About your needs.
Yes.
So what if you have a partner who's just not really receptive to hearing about any of this?
You're gonna have to knowing your partner like you do. It's not like you can sit down and maybe there are those that you can, but I think every situation is different, and you might have to be creative a little bit and come up with different ways presenting some of these
Right.
things. Might be very subtle. It's not just gonna me it's not like you have to blow everything up and, vomit it all out on the table and say, "Here it is," right? That'd be a big mess to probably have to clean up.
Yeah.
So, but, if you just go about your way and again, get creative in setting some boundaries, you might have to set boundaries that people don't even know that you're setting.
Right.
That's such a common term now that's thrown about
Boundaries. Yeah.
boundary setting and setting boundaries. And I don't mean to make light of that because it is important, but it might be that you're going to have to do it in a way that doesn't seem like you're setting a boundary,
Right. Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Well, and I mean, I guess a lot of those things, when you think about boundaries in general, it's like you're protecting your peace, really.
Yeah.
And I think we talk about, quote, protecting our peace, unquote, more now than I have ever talked about that before.
Hmm.
And it really does relate to a lot of the things that we're
Yeah.
talking about here,
Yeah.
because if we allow people to kind of govern what we're doing or what is directed as our happiness, it's like you're really kind of giving that huge responsibility to someone else. And why would you do that? Nobody's
Yeah.
gonna know better than you are what
Right.
you want and what you need.
Right.
Because bottom line, you guys, it's like midlife is a time for us to be able to evolve. There is nothing inappropriate about wanting more. There is nothing embarrassing about wanting more. And it isn't a
Yeah.
freaking crisis. You're not going through a midlife crisis. It's your next evolution knocking on your door, going, "What's next for me?" And
Oh, yeah.
God damn it, I'm going to check it out.
Right.
That's
Get
what
it,
needs to
girl.
be. So I guess the
I love
question is,
that.
are you willing to answer? Are you willing to answer when that knock comes at the door? So we will see. There will be a link in the show notes. We are thrilled to be with you guys today. Please follow us on YouTube, subscribe and like, as well as Instagram. TikTok is our fave these days, and of course, Facebook. And thank you for spending time with us today.
All right, everybody. Until next time,
Spicy.
stay
Stay
spicy.
spicy.
Yeah.
We got to be spicy, then you can stay spicy. All right. Bye, guys.